'Twas the strike before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Except, of course, the junior doctors, who were not just stirring, but engaging in the largest round of industrial inaction in the history of the National Health Service. Indeed, today marks the first of 3 days of strikes in the run-up to Christmas, which are expected to have devastating effects on the health service. NHS chiefs have said they couldn't have come at a worse time, as it's obviously winter and services, as usual, are busy. The BMA has rather bizarrely claimed that this is a strike to save the NHS, when in reality it's doing exactly the opposite. Well, I'm joined now by my pugnacious panel, former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the historian and broadcaster Tessa Dunlop. Tessa, I'm going to let you be pugnacious first. They have chosen a time when, by going on strike now, they almost have a fortnight of strike, don't they? Because they get the Christmas service and the New Year service, and this is really damaging for patients.
I think they've already been on strike for 28 days, an unprecedented 28 days, and now this is 9 more over the Christmas period. The thing is, if you're striking, you want it to have maximum impact. We just need to look at the way in which the train drivers strike. It's like the lesson, the template, if you like, for all other strikers. And we know, how did they gum up last year, Christmas? They went on strike. So the junior doctors are following suit. And if you're going to strike, you need to strike effectively. And the way you do it is to hit at the heart of the Great British Family Christmas. So if I'm a striker and I want more money, then I've got to say, I think this action will be effective.
But you've also got to put yourself in the position of somebody who's a doctor, and people are going to die. When the railway trains aren't running, nobody dies. This is just fundamentally different.
Do you know, this is one of the great tragedies. It's one of the reasons why the mainly empathetic jobs, such as teaching, predominantly done by women, and nursing, predominantly done by women, 90% of nurses are female, are so underpaid. Because it's meant to be vocational. We're all meant to have in our hearts, you know, Florence Nightingale's spirit. And actually what's interesting about doctors is they combine both science and apparently empathy, and therefore they can leverage their compassion against their scientific training and just crank up or demand far more than your humble carers, those nurses settling, I think, for 6% when the junior doctors are asking for 11%. But Jacob, we cannot get away from the fact we live in the globe. We may want to be Little Britain and pull up the drawbridge, but there is a shortage of healthcare workers, including predominantly doctors. So if we want the best, if we want to recruit the best, I'm afraid that means you need to pay them the best rates.
Well, market forces, Kelvin, we're all in favour of those.
Right, if you want market forces, I am massively, this is my argument, massively in favour of that. Don't work for a monopoly, and don't be a member of a trade union. If you really think that you have a value, which isn't only there collectively by killing somebody's mother, right? If you honestly believe that, let's start seeing a privatised health service, for instance, like Ireland, where 65% have to pay and 35%, the skin, right, they don't have to pay. Let's have that. But let's also deal with the issues about junior doctors. They are supposed to be, I don't know whether they're supposed to be empathetic. They're not skint. They make between 30 and 95 to 100,000 now.
68,000. Stay
Right. Now, honestly, we meet a guy actually in the green room who's coming on to you later, right? He is 33, makes 55,000 a year. As a public sector worker, they are the highest paid, and they should be, right? How do you feel about, I don't know, how old is your mum?
81.
Right. So she's not very well. A&E, of course, she's in Scotland, of course, where, of course, you know, I think they actually did write the cheque, actually. On the Southerners' money, by the way, on Southerners' money.
You could argue this strike is going to be fully resolved by Humza Yousaf, because he's now going to introduce that higher tax rate, which means all those Scottish doctors that didn't strike are going to be heading south because they're going to want to avoid the higher tax band.
As with everybody else. That's why the train system will work so well, because the whole of Scotland will be heading down here to avoid...
Not the whole of Scotland, just the higher runners. But there is... I think the key
presume
point
you
here,
do need clever people in Scotland.
But there is a key point, is do you want to pay for the best?
I do not want to pay with somebody with a gun next to my mother's temple. I tell you that now. I don't care. They can go on strike for 1,000 years. That moment is over. They are not wholly underpaid. The consultants have just had a 20% pay hike.
How can you justify that and not give it to the juniors?
At the end of the day, the consultants actually are running the A&E. So without them, if you had a broken leg, you'd have some pancreatic issue, you've got cancer.
Become consultants. So that's their pay increment. They get paid more as they progress through their career. They become consultants and they're extremely well paid.
But the
That's
extraordinary
perfectly
thing
fair.
is the consultants who've just been given a massive pension break and be given nearly, in some cases, 20 grand extra on their pay packet, never had to pay 100 grand for their extensive education.
But that's just the way life is.
The current tranche of junior doctors, to be fair, are lumbering under massive, unprecedented debt that you didn't pay, that you didn't pay for your slightly pointless degrees and that I didn't pay. So I do have a degree of...
Well, hold on a second, I haven't got a degree.
I'm just saying, who would you rather? Jacob Rees-Mogg, and I think your pay is going to go up as an MP to £93,000. Are you more valuable this Christmas with your history degree as an MP on £93,000, or is a junior doctor more valuable?
Junior
often
doctor,
only paid
a junior doctor is worth when they start 25, 30, 35,000, whatever they're worth, right? They go on like that, and eventually they end up at the very people you're decrying, the consultants, making, as far as I can see, about 200,000 a year out of the NHS, and at the same time, every time you go and see a consultant about an ingrown toenail, it costs you 240 quid. So don't try and pretend anybody...
Do you really pay 250 for your toenails?
240 quid, actually, to be told there was nothing wrong with me.
I don't think we need to go into people's toenails. It may distress people eating their dinner.
Apologies.
But these junior doctors do become consultants. They do then get, as Kelvin's saying, very well paid. They have a ladder that they're going up.
The truth is, I think we'd all always rather care for our own. And I only know this because I spend a lot of time in Romania. They were training and they were losing more doctors than they were training year on year. So what did they do in 2018? They looked at the figures and they increased doctors' pay by 70%. And guess what? They now retain more doctors than they lose.
We're not training enough. That's the problem.
Well, we train more.
We think the health service can predict how many they're going to need in 7 years' time, and it gets it wrong.
Right, well, the General Medical Council needs to look at the number that we train, but in the meantime, we actually need to stop some of them going overseas. It's a really competitive market.
No, we don't.
But the ones
we don't need to do that. What we do need to do is to stop whoever it is that decides that X number of people should become medical students, and we should open the doors up, because what with Google and with technology, the idea that they can sort of go to you and say, oh, I think it's arthritis, right? That day is now over. Many, many more people, pharmacists particularly, can take much of the burden away from doctors, and doctors will be pleased. And people tell me who know about these things say that AI will actually reduce the number of doctors that we're likely to need in the future.
You're
And then their
talking
pay will
about
decline.
Fantasyland
But
future.
we're going to draw stumps there on this particular discussion, because a bizarre